This podcast is sponsored by the Wren Bar, the top venue for your team's events, parties or barbecues. Message the Wren Bar on social media to book in your team.
So I'm joined now by Jeffrey Lynskey. We're here with another edition of the Galway Senior Hurling Championship and Galway Intermediate Hurling Championship Power Rankings. Jeff, safe to say the Hurling Championship really came to life at the weekend.
Yeah, look, the game at the weekend was Ardrahan and Crockwell. Really good game of hurling, up and down the pitch, some savage scores. I've heard since that Crockwell have put an appeal regarding that score at the end. They're appealing to the powers of be and the video footage of it. I looked at the game myself. It's very hard to see from the side angle. If you have a camera behind you, probably able to see whether it was over it. Looking at Dark's body language, the way he jumped up from the ball, I think Sir Donnan made reference to it on the video, and on the TV, Go TV, they looked over.
You think they have a point of appeal in it?
I just thinking where's the precedence in it? Like, you know, I haven't seen a team yet, ever, to come to mind with the Galway Championship that have appealed this and won it. I think the referees report will be final. The scores will obviously, you know, at 2 points rather than a 1, you know, on the board, would help them out an awful lot. But look, they have to try everything, Paul. You know, if they feel wrong, they have to appeal it.
It was really the drama, Jeff, over the weekend that made it such a good weekend of hurling, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, look, that game, the Clymerdaley and the Clarenbridge game, Luke Lynskey's goal at the end, and the bravery and the courage he showed to step inside, to go for that stage, you know, it showed their mindset. I was really impressed with them and Ardrahan at the weekend in terms of their endeavour and their heart and their fight. I heard Bino had a point of proof against David Ford. It was a comment made inside in Task Pub. And Bino fairly answered the last day. Brian Burke is shooting lights out from frees. They're very solid at the back as well with the Concannons. Ardrahan have big physical guys that are suited this time of year now because it's winter hurling, soft pitches, and it's going to be tight pitches now with their eye closed. So it's going to be interesting, really, the last round of games, because look, you have Sarsfields who will be hurting after the Castlegar loss, Turlockmore after coughing up 1-1 towards the end in atrocious conditions, and it's all to play for.
Found that. Do you think that's going to have a factor, like for certain teams now, Kenny Park not being in use for the rest of the championship?
Yeah, a lot of the top teams, Loughrea, particularly with the forwards they have, but they can mix it as well. They like open spaces of Athenry and Pearse Stadium. It'll suit Clymerdaley and Ardrahan. Turlockmore inside line, they need to get a greater return from. Kind of Shock's probably okay. But Cork and Phelan, I thought were poor. Without Sean Lalande there, particularly in the second half, they were in trouble. Clarenbridge will be disappointed because they didn't match the physicality or the intensity of Clymerdaley. And look, in fairness to them, they responded, got it back to level. But there was the last kind of passage of play they'll be disappointed with the defending side of it, in particular. Ardmore had a good win against Tommy Larkins, and Larkins are probably in trouble. I've seen Ronan Murphy come on at half time they lasted, so he'll help them out in their last game as well. But you see Clarenbridge winning that.
Just on it, so you can obviously see the power rankings here, can you, Jeff?
Yeah.
So we have 1 to 8 in the Galway Senior Hurling Championship power rankings. I just go through them now. So St. Thomas's maintain their position in first place, as do Loughrea in second place. Clymerdaley have been the big movers in the last few weeks, so they're up 3 places in third. Ardrahan have jumped up a huge amount of places, up 7 places. Turlockmore, they maintain their place in fifth. Sarsfields are down 2 after their defeat to Castlegar at the weekend, so they're in 6th place now. Clarenbridge, they're down 4 after their defeat very late on to Clymerdaley, and Ormore Mary maintain their position in 8th after their victory over Tommy Larkins. with Thomas's, Jeff, they're obviously still in first place and rightly so, going for 6 in a row. The game was tied against Portumna. They come out in the second half, they scored 3-31, and it just says it all why they're really in first place.
Yeah, look, I'd say Kenneth's probably happy with them this year at this time of the year compared to last year, when they suffered the heavy loss against Turlockmore. Their quality of their team play, Paul, is at a really, really high level. I would look
What
at
is that team play?
Just the way they have to find each other, the accuracy of their stick passing, their link-up play, their distribution of the ball, their scoring efficiency. You know, they're taking off out of the boxes in terms of how the modern game's been played. Their in-game management is at a really high level, but like they have lads who look, they're going for 6 in a row. There'll be a hunger there. Conor Gooney again is flying it for the club championship. Darragh Burke was better the last day. Aina was out centre forward. Shane Cooney is impressing at 3. Finton or at 6. Finton's at 3. You know, like they just in each line of the pitch they've got quality players. And they're, look, as I said, they're a team with a huge amount of nous in terms of how to play the game and how to get things done. You'd be still looking at them saying, right, yeah, they're going to get caught, and everyone feels they're going to get caught. But like the way they're playing at present, you know, obviously themselves and Loughrea are a bit ahead of everyone. But look, there'll be twists and turns in this championship yet over the next couple of weeks.
Loughrea obviously in second place, a really strong performance for them against Cappataggle at the weekend. Just with Loughrea, are these two, Thomas's and Loughrea, just a bit ahead of everyone at the minute?
It would be a present in terms of their management teams are far more experienced. A lot of the management teams, Ardrahan's management team is year 2. David Earls and Aidan Ryan are back with Clymer Daly, so they were lads that have kind of been there, have experience of doing it and getting teams to quarterfinals, semi-finals. But it does seem to be with the results. Loughrea have Kilkenare next, you know, so like you'd have to fancy Loughrea in that one. But a lot can change in this championship, Paul. If you get 1 or 2 injuries to key players, all of a sudden you're weakened. If you haven't got the depth in their panel, I know, look, Loughrea have Martin Mack to come back onto it. Young Shaughnessy came on the last day. Oisin Coyle will probably be fitter in 4 weeks' time for the quarter-final stage. So, yeah, look, the top 2 seem to be a bit ahead. But I'm looking at Ardrahan there and kind of thinking with the way they're playing, the men they've got up top, the physicality of their play, they've got ball winners in Jason Kennedy, especially the way Keenan's hurling at 6 and Derek in goals. They've been probably the curveball of the championship thus far.
Are Clymer Daly and Ardrahan 2 genuine dark horses who it wouldn't surprise you if they've got their way to the last 4 or even a final, just with the way they've caused upsets so far?
Yeah, I'd say they're the surprise package of the championship, but based on what they've done thus far, Clymer Daly had the win against Tommy Larkin's first day out. Ardrahan had a good win against Castigar. Castigar have now responded. They'll get a bit of confidence from their win against Sarsfields, especially. Ord Moore will obviously need a result in the last game. But look, yeah, the top 2 are a bit ahead of the rest. But on their day, you're kind of going, any one of Turlockmore, Sarsfields or Clymer Bridge could cause a huge amount of problems for the top 2.
And what's brought Ardrahan up 7 places for you?
Well, look, they've a win and a draw. The last day, I just think the way they hurled, they lost their centre back in Cosgrave to just his timing was off. You know, it was a deserved red. Don't get me wrong, his timing was off on the bat. But if Johnny Glynn is back the next day, and they have him for the knockout stages, they're going to cause teams problems. They'll probably play a type of hurling that a lot of teams at present aren't used to, because a lot of teams are very precise in how they're playing the game in terms of ball inside. But they're putting ball inside there for Jason Kennedy. 40's getting a few scores. And for me, look, because of what they've done to date, yeah, I've moved them up a good few places.
Just a question we got from yesterday's show, but forgot to get through it with Morris Brosnan. It was a question I presumably saw that came in from a Climber Daily supporter, I take it. But they begged the question, is David Kincannon, is he worth a call up into the Galway ranks? What would your views be on that?
It was on the development squad in Shannon Neal's time. I think for Henry and the lads this year especially, they're going to have to look at these lads and probably change things up within the senior panel. Dave, yeah, look, for someone, he's all the attributes there. He got size, he's got pace, he's got the hurling ability. The one thing he hasn't got is experience of playing inter-county at a high level, and that takes time to get used to that in terms of the speed of the hurling. Would he be someone? Yeah, I look at he'd be one, definitely. Jason Kenny to be another. Adrian Prendergast to be another. You know, you'd be looking at these lads and kind of hit the right. Kenny, I guarantee you, Jason Kennedy would be brought in and looked at. They'd have no problem in looking at these lads. He's able to win his own ball in the air. Would he be a guy that you could work with, bring up the speed? You could get him ready for a league campaign. If he worked really hard, ferociously hard, he probably would be good enough for a place in the 34 the way he's hurling. But a lot of these lads, you'd probably be able to judge ball further when it gets to the tail end of the championship, especially the next round in the quarterfinal and the prelim.
So they're the kind of top four, as you mentioned. Thomas's and Loughrea, you just feel they're a bit ahead at the minute. Then you see Climber Daily and Ardrahan as two dark horses who can really challenge this year and cause upsets along the way, as they did so far in the championship. Turlockmore a fifth. They remain in the same place. You could tell Sean Lennan's reaction at the end of that game that he obviously wasn't happy with that challenge. But as I was saying to Morris yesterday on the podcast, I'd say a bit had to do with that of Turlockmore dominating for the full game and probably leaving Gort in it and ultimately catching up with them.
Yeah, look, talking to Paul Killian work today, like he was saying, the conditions, it was monsoon, like inside in Athenry. They'd all the hard work done. They'd be disappointed with the goal that Paddy Cummins was left outside the ruck. There was no one to keep an eye on him. And in fairness to himself and Aidan Helper Pigeon, you needed the two of them on the ball for that last ball in particular, because they were the ones up top that were really leading it. The younger lads, in fairness to them at the back, young Gill, you know, kept going to the end. On Cooley at fullback was abrasive, was Teague tough, or he was abrasive as well at half time. But they stood up and fronted up. Showed a huge amount of character and resolve. But the key game for them now next is obviously Portumna, because they're going to need that to avoid relegation.
Just on that, we'll tie 5th, 6th and 7th in here. Turlockmore, Sarsfields, Clanbridge. They're you kind of, when we started doing the power rankings, you put them in the top 5 category along with Loughrea and Thomas's. Do you still expect Turlock, Sarsfields and Clanbridge to be thereabouts?
Well, look, they're going to have to get results the next day. But I do, yeah. I think Clarenbridge of the two probably showed more in the second half, especially to show the fight that was necessary, that was needed. They weren't firing all cylinders either. But like Clanbridge Daly's aggressiveness at the backs upset their Clarenbridge front six definitely. Sarsfield's half forward line needs to improve. For me. You're probably needing more ball winners there. They didn't win enough primary possession, and Kevin is obviously leading the attack for them, but they probably need to get more out of other half forward line. Possibly move Alex Kinnear in at 11. Could move John Cooney up wing forward. Can they afford to move Joseph up? They're questions I'd be asking. Could they push even Darren Morrissey into midfield to strengthen up that, or even Fox? Fox would be a good lad to put at 11 because of his work rate, his ball usage and his ability around the ruck. They'll have to change things up now for the next game. But yeah, look, to answer your question, Paul, I do see the Turlockmore, Sarsfields, Clarenbridge being thereabouts. They'll be the teams probably to cause Loughrea and Thomas's most bother on any given day.
Yeah, you really expect them three to kind of come back into contention in the next round. Just before I move on to the the next slide. Ormore Mary showed improvements, you could say, from their opening day out, conceded no goals, really secure at the back. Good back as well. They're building nicely.
Yeah, look, they'll be disappointed with the second half. I know they lost by 3 and they missed a penalty, but their execution was way too low against Clarenbridge. Like, they were creating the chances, and obviously Niall Burke went off as well. I think Rory got 1 or 2 goals. Rory Burke got 1 or 2 goals for them the last day. Yeah, look, they're another team that you're kind of looking at. If the young lads fire with Garage and Niall, they could cause problems. Ross Malone was back the last day as well. We've seen him coming off. Hopefully he's okay. But yeah, look, more top 8, yeah, definitely. But it'll be interesting because they will cause teams problems.
The next bunch then in the senior championship, 9th to 10th, Castlegar up 4 places. Safe to say they've answered Kevin Brady's comments. We got a few Castlegar texts in after the weekend from a few of the players involved.
Get him on again. That'll get loads of likes and hits for you anyway, Paul. Put him on again and see what he says. Actually, you know what to do? Wait for another way. Let's wait for another way. Castlegar wins the next standard show, then bring him on. And then bring Joe Farrer on with him, then have a proper conversation and see where it ends up.
They have we plenty of texts in ideas again, which is great to see. Reaction ideas to it. 10th Crowell, they've maintained their place, as Jeff mentioned. They're going to appeal at that point. 11th Cappataggle, they're down 4 places after their defeat to Loughrea at the weekend. Gort, with their rescuing that draw at the weekend, there in 12th, maintain their place. 13th, Kilkenarn up 1 place, and Tommy Likens, they're down 5 places. Portona 15th, stay where they are, and by Cullen 16th, stay where they are after 2 defeats on the trot. But obviously, going by this side, Castlegar is the most noticed movement here, and deservedly so.
Yeah, look, like for 20 minutes you couldn't see much happening. I know what to set up defensively, but Greg Thomas got on ball. Callan got the goal that they needed. They're probably getting the spur and the confidence to go after a second half. I thought the back line, young Connolly at the back was impressive. Ryan was impressive. Sean Neary put in a huge shift, as did Mark Gill. Don Barry put in the hit on Joseph, and another day that was probably a red card for me anyhow. I was lucky to get away with it. But they showed a huge amount of bravery and courage. And look, I have to take my hats off to Joe Farrer, like, in terms of, forget about the age for a minute, but his timing of getting to the break or being in the right position at the right time, all his experience with there in terms of his threes and his points for play, and look, all you can say is well done to him in terms of what he did the last day, especially.
Crowell then staying 10th after their draw.
Yeah, and if they won it, you're probably pushing them up to top 8. Again, they showed a huge amount in terms of their team play the last day. Tom was obviously on fire. Adrian Prendergast got 1-9. Was very, very good. Cormac Divney had to come off. They brought on Jack Burke on him. Michael Walsh had a good shift in at 3. Defensively, they were fine. Crockwell. They're probably just missing something in the half-hour line that's going to win them that primary ball. There's probably more in Jamie Ryan inside. He probably hasn't fired the last 2 games. But look, Crockwell, yeah, it will probably be thereabouts. It all looks it's great for all of us really. It's going on to the last round of games, because look, it's all to play for.
Yeah, as I mentioned there, 9th to 10th. Castlegar and Crowell play each other, and then obviously Ardrahan and SHC play each other, and they're close to each other, so there is going to be a bit of movement there. It's going to be interesting then whoever finishes last there, because they're going to find themselves in relegation. There's no one through in that group, which just makes it so exciting. Cappataggle down for places, probably a few concerns of conversion rates in attack, and it probably is what sees them in 11th. Like, they're still going to have enough, obviously, to get through, you expect, but just a few concerns about them now.
Yeah, look, Collins has been fire inside for them, but I think their ball usage needs to improve. I think Nine Canavan had the stat there after 12 minutes of second half against Loughrea. They created 7 chances and converted 2. They dropped an awful lot of balls in on top of Garage Lucknan, and had a good few wides. If they start using the ball better and distributing it better as well inside to the boys, they'll hurt teams. But Liam isn't seeing the same amount of ball that he saw last year. Look, maybe teams have worked them out. Maybe they're putting huge amounts of pressure on their half-back in midfield and probably working harder. But yeah, look, for me, for all the talk about Loughrea, the last day, Cappy still created an awful lot of chances. They didn't convert.
Gort, stay right there, but can that result against Turlockmore kickstart a good season now for Gort?
Look, if they beat Portumna the next day, they're going to finish in third, obviously. So the big look, they're county finalists, but it's a Portumna game next week, Paul. They have to win that. Whatever they did against Turlockmore ain't going to count. Portumna turned them over. So all their efforts and focus will need to be against Portumna, and Portumna are usually really good at getting themselves up for one particular game. There was probably a huge improvement in the first half to last day against Thomas's, and they'll be hurting, especially with the second half performance levels. But that'll be an interesting game because look, it's a relegation battle in itself. Who do you fancy? Would it be a good question based on what we've seen thus far? You'd have to say Gort. But I wouldn't be surprised if Portumna got a result against them.
And with that, you mentioned Portumna there. They're obviously in 15th, but as you mentioned there, whoever wins between Gort and Portumna goes through. Whoever loses finds himself in relegation. Kilculliran, they look to have secured that third place. That game against Mike Cullen was always going to be huge for them. But with that, they've kind of secured their place to third and look like they're going to advance now. So that's probably why they're up 1 place.
Yeah, look, that's it. They were delighted with their win last Saturday in Pierce Dale against Mike Cullen. I think they were 14 points up at one stage. Mike Cullen got it back, and that's a huge win for them. Obviously, they have Loughrea next. Mike Cullen were probably very disappointed in their championship to date, in terms of where they came last year and where they're at now. It's a steep learning curve with them, for them, with a lot of young players. And Larkins have probably just been very unfortunate with the injuries that they've had, especially to Jason Flynn.
Larkins, Portumna, and Mike Cullen all really look like they're going into this relegation battle.
Yeah, and it's a tough station as well. There's obviously is it a group of 4 crossplay, Paul? How does that work?
Yeah, I think relegation semi-final
and final. Yeah,
I'm actually not sure. Is it a relegation semi-final or is it a round robin? How it exactly works?
Yeah,
let's check into that.
Yeah, so look, that'll be interesting to see who the 4 that come out of that. But look, you can be unlucky, very unlucky with injuries in the championship. Larkins have been very consistent over the last couple of years. Probably unlucky not to get to 1 or 2 county semi-finals. But look, when you lose someone like Jason Flynn, it's obviously going to hurt you. Portumna, Lamar is not playing this year. You know, have the same hunger and fight that they had last year. Is something they have to answer for themselves. But Mike Cullen will be disappointed where they're at present.
That's all on the Senior Hurling Championship Power Rankings. We're actually going to move on to Senior B. Before we do that, were you just delighted over the weekend, Jeff?
Yeah, look, you were pleased that the result was got against Athenry. 9 points up against Athenry at half time was probably fair in terms of the quality of play. Second half, then look, Louis D made a huge save on Noel Keogh. If that had gone in, it would have brought it back probably to, I think it was 5, if not 6 points. Athenry did create, but they were shooting from because of the gate force speed for probably 70, 80 yards out. But their quality of play wasn't good enough either, Paul, at times compared to Mellows. Mellows butchered 3 goal chances, but created them. Played some good hurling at times, and it was important for the club and for the lads themselves and the management team to get a win.
So just on that Senior B power rankings here, Mulla in first, they stay right there. Kilnadima Leitrim up 1 place, Haskell-Fohan down 1 place. Lee Meadows up 1 place after their narrow victory over Athenry at the weekend. Behet rise 3 places after their victory at the weekend. Clymer are down 2 places in 6th. Port Pierce is still there, and Athenry, where things aren't going too well at the moment, are down 2 places. Jeff, I don't know if you get a chance to listen to the podcast last week, but we had Liam Donoghue and Franny Ford on, and they were both saying how much they fancy Kilnadima Leitrim for this championship. They looked really good again at the weekend. Are Mulla and Kilnadima Leitrim a bit ahead of everyone in Senior B at the minute?
Based on the results, I saw them at war today. In terms of Leitrim, look, obviously they've good forwards and they're scoring high returns. But I'd say with the quality of the 2 groups, I would still fancy Mulla or Lee Mellows to get to a final. Mulla, in fairness to them, as I made a reference to, with Derek Hardiman over them, look, they got a really good result against Mellows and dug it out against Ahaskra. But look, Paul, with this Senior B, anything can happen with this on any given day. And again, if some of the teams get 1 or 2 injuries to key personnel, I'd question the depth of what they have in their panels that's going to replace them. But look, you'd have to be impressed with Leitrim clean. That's why they're up to 2nd. They're there on Merse. They're through. The big game then the following week is obviously Haskell-Fohan against Mellows. Mulla and Athenry won't really count because Athenry are in trouble as it is. I'm not too sure will they have Paddy Hannon back. Keane Burke will be back, obviously. Pearce's will be disappointed. Clymer are probably expecting a bit more, and Behet are absolutely delighted with their win against Pearce's.
There's loads of movement there, but that's probably just a pattern it's going to follow here in Senior B.
Yeah, look, I think any team of the top 4 could win that Senior B. You look, I've only looked at Mellows and I've looked at Athenry thus far. I'm judging on what I saw against Haskell-Fohan last year. I made a reference to it in terms of they really got themselves organised this year. Kilnadima and Leitrim, I think, haven't played anyone at the quality of Mulla or Mellows yet. So I'll reserve judgment until that happens.
Would it be disastrous if Athenry found themselves in a relegation battle here? It's because it's likely it's going to happen, and then that's where you hear the conversation. Would it be disastrous for them if they do go down?
Can't Nelson life, you're there on Merse, and look, if the commitment's not there from the whole group during the year, you're going to find yourself in trouble. They probably did enough against Ahaskra the first day to get over the line. The sending off obviously hurt them. I think they were 8-2 up in the first half. They're a club steep in loft attrition. They've a lot of players coming through, but like the one under 22 years ago, Paul, am I right? They would have beaten Clarenbridge if not 2 or 3 years ago. And you're just wondering where these guys are gone, and why they're not pushing on, But look, what I expect the next day, if they have Paddy Hannon and Keane Burke back, there'll be a better showing against Mulla, and obviously they're going to have to get themselves ready for a relegation playoff.
It's the way it's going to be. Obviously, we're going into the final round, so you'll have 2nd and 3rd cross playing in a quarterfinals after the next round. First straight through to semi, and then the bottom team in each group will find themselves in a relegation battle. Moving on then to the intermediate, we have 1 to 8 here in the intermediate. So first, Teen Abbeyknockmoy, they stay with that, rightly so. The scores they put up. Meath Gaelcourt, last year's county finalist, in 2nd. Rahim Newcastle in 3rd after a good victory for them over the weekend, racking up 22 points. Abbeyknockmoy, 2 out of 2, they jump up 6 places into 4th. Then Ceylon with a big win last night over Carramore, they're down 1 place. Kinvara, were Conor Whelan inspired, and were down one place to 6th. Carnmore in 7th, they still were there, and Ballindereen with a good victory last night over on Spiddale are down 2 places. No movement here at all in the top 3, Jeff.
Yeah, look, obviously the top 2 are probably a bit ahead of the rest, and then obviously from number 3 to 8 on any given day they could probably take each other out. Abbey had a big win the last day.
Is that why they're up 6 places?
Yeah, look, they're qualified. They're qualified onto the next round. We're going to move them up. It'll be interesting to see now the next round in terms of the quarter final, what happens there. But look, John Fleming back at 6 is another lad, Paul, that could get a look in with Henry squad again. I think it's an environment for him. I think if there's time and effort put into him, he'd be good enough from what he's probably done for the county at underage and what he's done at Fitzgibbon. He ticks an awful lot of boxes from me. But look, it'll be fairly interesting when we get to knockout stages where Tina are at as well, like, because they're going to probably get a Stearns test in a quarter-final or a semi-final. But look, with Paul Clean at the helm and the management that they have, obviously they're favourites. Aircourt will hope to get one better this year. And Rathroon are progressing nicely. Did a good win the last day in Pearse Stadium. But yeah, look, the top 8 for me, I don't think there's much else outside that.
Sidon down 1 place. They qualified obviously last night for the quarter final after their victory over Carnmore.
Yeah, look, they had a really good year last year. Big win last night. So look, outside the top 8, Paul, will Annadown push in is the question. Will Annadown after the win, I think Chairman Kilcummin scored whatever 11, 12 points the last
13.
13. Okay. Had a really good showing in that. Dave Connors was tweeting about it. So look, it'll be interesting to see if Annadown can push into the top 8.
Is Dermot Kilcummin someone you'd be thinking about if you were
there? Yeah, look, again, he was there. Played a lot of league games. He probably fits the profile of what we need in terms of power, running ability, and a line breaker. Played really good fits games for us the year before last, so like he's a lad that played at a high level in terms of rugby and Gaelic football and the whole lot, has a lot to offer. It's like Anthony else with these lads, look, do they want it bad enough, and do they want it bad enough to improve further? Be it whatever aspect of the game they need to improve.
Just there on 6 days, Kinvara obviously got back on track. Carnmore would probably be disappointed. Ballindereen down 2 places, but like as you were saying there, from 3 to 8, there's not a whole lot between. But particularly in them 3 teams, you don't feel there's a whole lot between them either.
No, there's not a whole lot between those 3 teams. So look, it's who's going to jump up. I said Ballygar, put in really good performances to date. And probably haven't finished out games well in terms of their score conversion and score execution. But Annadown are kind of probably the big movers over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, Annadown go up four places there in 9th. 2 late goals from Matthias Coleman actually stole it for them against Turlockmore at the weekend. Clarenbridge, they're down 2 places. Ballygar, they were there. Turlock, obviously, who were defeated by Annadown late on. They're down 3 places. Kilbeakenty up 2 after their victory over Kiltormer. Crockwell down 2. Kiltormer down 1 after their defeat to Kilbeakenty, and Spiddale in 16th. You mentioned Annadown and Ballygar. Do you put Clarenbridge into that category as well, that maybe teams that can challenge?
Yeah, look, you're looking probably outside Annadown as Clarenbridge, probably the next team. Will Turlockmore lose anyone to the senior team? Probably not at this stage. Will Clarenbridge lose anybody? Probably not either, but if someone's going to break into the top 8, it's probably going to come from the teams in 9th and 10th.
You mentioned as well Ballygar, they can finish out games. Turlock obviously down 3 places. They have 1 more game to play against Sidon, but you still expect them enough to survive. Kilbeakenty and Kiltormer have been 2 sides that have struggled, but Kilbeakenty obviously go up those 2 places after really they snatched 2 points late on to win it 1-9 to 1-7 at the weekend.
Yeah, look, they're always a club to kind of find one win that's needed, Paul, to kind of to keep themselves intermediate hurling. The lads out there love their hurling. I presume Andy Egan got a good few points to last it further.
Yeah, I think he got the 2 last points to win it.
Two last points to win it, So look, outside of them teams, obviously St. Bridget's in trouble. Kiltormer are struggling. Crockwell, Fergal Healy's still playing with them. Will they'll probably get a win as well to kind of stave off that relegation from intermediate.
Yeah, it's Crockwell about a year there. That's just all on our power rankings for today. Just before we finish, Jeff, overall, would you say it's been a good hurling championship?
Yeah, look, I've over the last 2 weeks, like I looked at all the games at the weekend there. Obviously the Ardrahan Crockwell game was a standout game. I do think a lot of teams need to improve further. But the weather has been so poor, Paul, and the pitches have turned into winter pitches in the month of August, You'd love to see kind of, top of the ground hurling, nicer weather conditions for a lot of the teams. But it's going to be interesting now with the games that are going to take place in Loughrea and Ballinasloe. Probably Gort will have to be opened up, and you win as well, So the new one's a big pitch now. That's a fine field. So like it's a drier pitch than the north of the pitches that a lot of these teams have been and play on. The ball's going to move quicker. But yeah, look, in terms of excitement, like you couldn't get any better than the Clonbridge-Clonmerdale game. And obviously, the excitement is at the end of the Crockwell Ardrahan game. And obviously, to highlight probably the weekend was Durfar with the point scored, and second would be Luke Lynskey for me with the goal he got. The bravery he showed to go for it at that stage, was testament to himself and the work he's done over the last few years. But yeah, all in all, look, you'd be happy with the championship to date. Would Henry be happy is the other question, and can he find a few players out of it? Only time will tell.
Yeah, that really seems to be the main aim from a Galway management perspective. But that's all we have time for on today's power rankings. We'll be back obviously when there's action again and there'll be movements again up and down across the power rankings.